Okay, Hare Krishna. So, today we'll read Srila Prabhupada Nectar book. And we'll first sing a song about Sri Bhaktivinoda Thakur's song, O Vaishnava Thakur. O Vaishnava Thakur, Doyara Sagara, Edase Karuna Kore. Diya Parachaya, Shadaya Maya, Tomara Charana Tori. Chaya Bega Domi, Chai Dosha Shori, Chai Guna Deho Dase. Chaya Satsanga, Deho Amare, Jose Che Sangera Ashe. Ekaki Amara Naipaya Bala Harinama Sankirtane. Tumikripa Kori Shradabindu Diya Deho Krishna Namadhane. Krishna se tomara, Krishna dite para, tomara shakati ache. Amito Kangala, Krishna Krishna boli, dai tava pache pache. O Venerable Vaishnava, O Ocean of Mercy, be merciful unto your servant. Give me the shade of your lotus feet and purify me. I hold on to your lotus feet. Teach me to control my 6 passions, rectify my 6 faults, bestow upon me the 6 qualities, and offer unto me the 6 kinds of holy association. I do not find the strength to carry on alone the sankirtan of the holy name of Hari. Please bless me by giving me just 1 drop of faith with which to obtain the great treasure of the holy name of Krishna. Krishna is yours. You have the power to give him to me. I'm simply running behind you, shouting, Krishna, Krishna. Okay, so we will continue with our reading from Srila Prabhupada Nectar book. We will be on, if you're following in the book, it'll be page 145, number 50, called Realizations. It says, one morning we were walking with Srila Prabhupada in Battery Park in New York City. So this particular morning, Srila Prabhupada was not speaking. He just said, just chant Hare Krishna. So he wanted us to chant Hare Krishna and japa, and he was also chanting. So the devotee who's writing this. Oh, this is Hridayananda Maharaj. So he says that he says, by my good fortune, that particular day, my japa was good. He said, I was chanting my japa very enthusiastically, and Srila Prabhupada liked that. And he was, Srila Prabhupada was looking at him and encouraging him by looking at him. Yeah. He says it was a very intimate and confidential thing. He says I was feeling ecstatic, and Srila Prabhupada was looking at me and acknowledging that my feeling of ecstasy. He says as my spiritual master, he was encouraging me to chant, and I was also looking at him with great reverence and appreciation for understanding that his feelings. He said, Srila Prabhupada was looking at Hridayananda Maharaj and understanding that, yes, I understand that you're feeling great ecstasy from this chanting. But Hridayananda Maharaj was saying here that he felt that Srila Prabhupada he understood that this good feeling he was getting from chanting was because of Srila Prabhupada. He says, then as we were walking through the park, I suddenly realized that we were in Vrindavan. He He said, I felt that the whole, as we were chanting, I felt that the whole park had become like the spiritual world. I felt that I was in Vrindavan. So he was saying, Srila Prabhupada was saying, as I was chanting, I was realizing that because of Srila Prabhupada, he was manifesting the mood of the spiritual world. So they were actually in New York, in a park in New York, but Srinandan's realization was that because of Srila Prabhupada, he was experiencing this particular level of realization. He says, I became more ecstatic, realizing that somehow or other Radha and Krishna and Lord Balaram and the cowherd boys and everyone was somehow in that park. And again, he's saying how Srila Prabhupada looked at him again and was understanding, and he was understanding that Srila Prabhupada was giving this mercy. So Srinananda Maharaj is saying, just because I was chanting very enthusiastically, Srila Prabhupada was reciprocating by giving me this blessing of seeing this as like the spiritual world. So he's saying that of course Srila Prabhupada's, compared to Srila Prabhupada's realization of Krishna and the spiritual world, his own was insignificant, but he was, because of Srila Prabhupada's mercy, Srila Prabhupada gave him some little taste. Okay, so here we go to the next section. This one was written by Bhavananda Goswami. It says, Prabhupada is here, Prabhupada is here. And it says everyone was running outside of the temple, so he also came along. Srila Prabhupada visited some temple, and somebody announced that Srila Prabhupada had just arrived. And so they were all running out to see Srila Prabhupada. So the car had just pulled up, and Srila Prabhupada came out. The car had just come up in front of the temple, and Srila Prabhupada was just getting out of the car. It says, as soon as I saw him for the first time, as soon as I saw him for the first time. Well, as soon as I saw him for the first time, then and there I said, I want to surrender. He was describing that when he saw Srila Prabhupada, he was like everything that he was looking for. He saw that, he found that in Srila Prabhupada's personality. It says he had perfect taste, perfect bearing, everything about him was perfect. He said I was always looking for perfection. I thought I would find it in the Duke of Windsor. Some personality, the Duke of Windsor. He was thinking previously that he would find that perfection in some other person, material perfect person. But he says that when I actually met that person, I realized that he didn't have what I was looking for. And then he says, I thought that I would find it in John F. Kennedy, but former President John F. Kennedy, but that he was killed. Killed. John F. Kennedy, he was one of our presidents. Kennedy, yeah. So he said, I was feeling that this person, this perfect person I wanted to meet. I was thinking maybe John F. Kennedy, but then he was killed. He died. You understanding?
Understand more about
okay, this devotee, Bhavananda Maharaj. So he'd always been looking for some perfect person, somebody who really was okay. So he thought about the Duke of Windsor, but found that was not the. This is a person. It's some person. I don't know who it is either. But here it says the Duke of Windsor. So some personality who he was attracted to, but when he met him, he found out no, he's not perfect. The Duke of Windsor was not perfect. And then he became attracted and felt, okay, an ideal person, perfect person was John F. Kennedy, but then he was. Then he thought he was seeing a perfect person as Martin Luther King. Then he started supporting that movement, but then Martin Luther King also was killed. Then he thought he would find it in Bobby Kennedy. He was also killed. So he was all these different people he was thinking had the answer, who were perfect, who could do something for the world. They were all being killed. Then he thought, different people, social leaders, movie stars, anyone. He always said they were perfect, but then he found out later that no, they're not. So he was describing here that when he saw Srila Prabhupada get out of the car, he got out of the car, he saw how he was dressed, saw how he held his hand in a certain way. When he saw Srila Prabhupada, he said, this is the actual perfect person. He was thinking that, well, he's saying this is who I can actually surrender to. Okay. Okay, so that next section here. This one was written by Mukunda Maharaj. So he said, I was speaking with Srila Prabhupada, and another devotee brought him a tall glass of tea. Brought in a tall glass of tea. He didn't give it to Srila Prabhupada, he brought it to him. He said, I accepted it, but Prabhupada said, why are you drinking tea? Why are you drinking tea? He said, Srila Prabhupada spoke to him in it says semi-reprimanding tone, like chastising, but gently. Why are you drinking tea? He says I was accepting it because the devotee offered it to me. Srila Prabhupada said, that tea is for taking if you have a cold. It is not to be taken otherwise. He was the tea, and I guess that means like an herbal tea or something. If you're drinking that tea, it's because you're sick. If you're sick, you take this. Otherwise, you don't just drink it as a beverage. So he said, I was holding the glass of tea in my hand, and instead of just putting it down, I looked at Prabhupada and said, then I shouldn't take it. He's asking Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada is saying, why are you drinking tea? It's meant for if you have a cold and you're sick. So now he's holding the tea, and he says, so I should not drink it? He's asking Srila Prabhupada, you're saying I should not drink this? So he's saying, so he's asking Srila Prabhupada, so I should not drink this? Do you want me to not drink this? He says, I was thinking it really wasn't so serious, and then unless Prabhupada really insisted, I could go ahead and take it anyway. So he's trying to decide whether he should go ahead and drink it anyway, even though Srila Prabhupada said, why are you drinking it? It's meant for someone who's sick, and it should not be drunk otherwise. So when Srila Prabhupada saw his mood, that he was not taking the whole thing seriously, he said, okay, you can take it, you can drink it this time. but do not drink it again.
No worship tea.
So then he said, so I didn't want to just sit there and drink it slowly in front of Srila Prabhupada, so I finished it very quickly. Yeah, but then he said, but then I started feeling guilty. I started feeling bad, like I did something wrong. So he said after drinking the tea, while he was speaking with Srila Prabhupada, his face he started perspiring a lot. The tea made him sweat. Perspire? When you work very hard and the water starts coming out, that's perspiring. So he drank the tea and his whole face started becoming wet. So then he felt more embarrassed. Embarrassed means he made it. Srila Prabhupada was warning him, don't drink this, and he's thinking, okay, I'll drink it anyway. Srila Prabhupada, okay, go ahead. But then he started feeling bad because as soon as he drank it, he started his body started reacting to it with so much perspiration because it was a medicine. It was a medicine that made him do that for that purpose.
I said
You explain it, okay. So, Srila Prabhupada just basically was just tolerating him. So he says he knew that Srila Prabhupada did not compromise. But he felt that Srila Prabhupada was willing to anyway, the point was he saw that Srila Prabhupada was lenient. He said, here's what you should do, but he didn't make a big issue out of it. He was lenient. Lenient means like in this example, okay, you should not drink this unless you're sick, but okay, go ahead and do it anyway this time. He made a little adjustment in what he said. But the principle was better not to drink it unless you're actually sick. So he says, I consider this part of his greatness, and I think it is mainly because I knew that he actually, inwardly, was not making any compromise at all. But he was very grateful that for this opportunity for Srila Prabhupada to be saying, interact with him. Okay. Another section here. This was written by Yashomati Nandana Das. So he said that his realization was that Srila Prabhupada's entire life was just preaching. That he used his whole body and every thought he had was just how to give Krishna consciousness to others. He said he would, before going to sleep at night, he would be preaching. And while he was resting, he was thinking about preaching. As soon as he woke up in the early morning, he would have some transcendental idea about preaching. So his whole life was about preaching. And then it says that because of his very great desire to spread Krishna consciousness, Srila Prabhupada, his own personality he would show by his own personality how a perfect person could be. Srila Prabhupada was very attractive, so people liked him, so they would like to hear from him. So that's what he's saying here. Okay, and one more section in this part. This was written by Palika Devidasi. So she's saying, so she says, I don't know how, under such austere conditions, I was ever able to cook for Srila Prabhupada. She says that in Bhubaneswar and other places, she would cook in a little shack in the fields. She said I was covered with black from the wood smoke, and I was full of smoke. She said my eyes were bloodshot red. Constantly tearing, and I couldn't open the door because all sorts of Indians were constantly coming. She said, if I opened the door, then so many people would come, and they would just stand there and watch me cook. But she said it was, this was Srila Prabhupada's offering, this was his meal, so how could others couldn't just come there and watch her cooking for Srila Prabhupada. So she said every once in a while I would have to get up because it was very difficult for me to breathe in that condition. She said all of a sudden you would hear me because all of a sudden I would just like, push the door open and try to get some air. And she would be standing there outside the door, breathing, trying to catch her breath. It says Krishna empowered her to do that at that time because I could never do such a thing again. I don't know how I ever did it. Says I would just go to some place where Srila Prabhupada was, and even if there were no facilities, I would set up and cook for him. It was only because of Srila Prabhupada's association. I would not do this otherwise. Because of that association, you do things that are completely beyond, your abilities in this world. And she said, I didn't mind it. Actually, I loved it the whole time. Says I was and I would go on like this, cooking for him all morning. He says when I finished cooking and it was time to serve Srila Prabhupada his meal, and it says my white sari was completely black from the smoke. My face was all black from the smoke. My eyes were all red, bloodshot. My eyes were swollen because of but when she would go into Srila Prabhupada's room with the plate, he wouldn't even blink an eyelash. Srila Prabhupada didn't. She was in that condition that Srila Prabhupada didn't say anything. She said it was just as though she had come in there and nice and clean, nice clean sari, everything was perfect. Srila Prabhupada it didn't bother Srila Prabhupada that she came in that condition, all covered with smoke and red face and teary eyes. It did not bother Srila Prabhupada. Huh? Bother means disturb. It did not disturb Srila Prabhupada. Says it didn't matter what was going on. Srila Prabhupada was always in his transcendental, equiposed position. Okay.
Let's go to the question.
Okay.
I have a question from
For yesterday's class. Okay. We just finished one section here, so we'll start.
Question is, so many times we see in Bhagavatam that old people, old age, very well to work. But never information, we can tell information when they are very deep in course. Never. What they do, because they come, for example, he came for live somewhere. He is old, and very difficult for him alone to build, for example, some house for living and to take food, or they made suicide there, or real wild animals eat people. What was worse with them?
Yeah, going to the forest, like vanaprastha, or going to the forest means you're going away from regular civilization. You're going away from, say, the conveniences of life. Conveniences means if you're at home, you've got your house, you got your stove, you got your nice bed. So you're leaving all that behind. Usually someone who went to the forest for these kind of austerities, they would build themselves a little shelter, maybe like a grass hut, for example.
For example, we read yesterday that some person he went to court.
Yes.
But can you present, for example, can you imagine who will go to court?
It would be in modern time. In modern times, it's not practical.
Yes. No. I try to understand how old person who are weak and sick, how can he can alone come forest and live there? It's impossible because wild animals everywhere. He is weak because he is old.
Yes, well, they did it. It was one thing is they're going there and they're dedicating their whole life, the rest of their life, to Krishna's devotional service, and they're depending on Krishna to protect them like that. The ladies didn't do this. They stayed at home. So the men would go there, and they could eat simple things, fruits and roots and so on, that they could find in the forest.
Very familiar with the constellation of most likely some berries, some fruits.
Yes, just like who? It was like Dhruva Maharaj when he was very young. He wasn't even old; he was young, and he performed these kind of austerities from when he was 5 years old. He was exceptional. And he spent he would eat in the beginning he was eating fruits and roots and those kind of things that were available easily in the forest. And gradually he increased or decreased his food by just eating leaves that fell off the trees. He just kept reducing more and more. But somehow or other, these if you know what you're doing, because we don't do this in our modern times, but if you know what you're doing, you can survive in a as far as food and everything. You can do it in a forest or a jungle setting. It is possible. So, someone has survival skills. You know how to utilize what's around you to protect yourselves and to eat. So the point was, it was very austere. There was no sense gratification at all.
Which sense
Well, there is nothing. You're by yourself, and there's really in those conditions you're forced to put aside any material, any thought of any kind of material enjoyment at all, and just concentrate on your worship of Krishna or Vishnu. This is way beyond anything we can do now. We're not told to go to the forest. Yeah, for example, the yogis, they would sit on a soft seat, and they had it was covered with a deer skin. Of course, the deer, you assume was the deer had died, and you were taking the skin. But a skin from a deer. And one reason for that was because snakes would stay away from you. Snakes would, anyway. Anyway, these are I can only take little bits and pieces from the statements that are given in the Srimad Bhagavatam. But it was a different age. Things were very different than now. But in modern times, the same principle is here, but in modern times the principle is you give up your material life and you concentrate your energy either in a temple or some place where your whole life is dedicated specifically to the service of the Lord. The heavy austerities of the past are just not practical for the modern people, so it's hard to relate to it because it's just not within our experience. Srila Prabhupada said our austerity basically is the four regulative principles. Because for us the struggle is sometimes just following the four regulative principles. But because the people in previous ages were so much more qualified, then their austerities were more difficult, but it was not more difficult for them because they were much more qualified. Just like the yogis, the Ashtanga yoga system back in the Satya Yuga, the yogi would be sitting in the summer. He'd be sitting in a ring of fire all around him under the hot sun, and meditating in that way. And they did this for many years. But if we just say, okay, I think I feel a little austere today. I'm going to go out and sit in the middle of the desert, and under the hot sun, and build a big ring of fire around me, and I'm going to just sit there and Hare Krishna, Krishna, all day. Every day, all day, then we probably wouldn't last very long. We wouldn't be able to do it. So Srila Prabhupada made it clear that our austerities, we don't have to do all these other heavy things from the past. We chant Hare Krishna, we follow the regular principles, and we keep in the association of devotees, of course. So in reality, we cannot. It's difficult to specifically relate to those kind of conditions of the past, because it's just something that it was for the people in the past. It's not for us now. And even in those conditions, then sometimes someone made mistake, and they did not perfect their lives in that particular lifetime. They had, like Bharata Maharaj. Bharata Maharaj was the king of he was the emperor of the world at the time. The world in India, especially now, was known as Bharata Varsha because he was such a great king. The whole planet was named after him. But he gave up early in his life. I don't know what age he was, but he still had wife, children, like that. So early in his life, he gave up everything, and he went off to the forest or to the mountains by himself to perform devotional austerities. And he lived by himself for, I don't know how long, it doesn't say that. But according to the history, he became attracted, he was without any other association, and he became attracted to one deer that he saved. And that deer he became so attracted to that deer, he was finally saying, "Oh, is it male deer? Is it my dear, my dear son? Are you okay? Let me scratch your head." He was very much absorbed in that deer. He was forgetting about his real purpose for being there. So in due course of time, that deer didn't come back to his home. Some little shelter he's had for himself. He did not come back one night. So he walked out everywhere in the dark, because there's no street lights everywhere. So he walked out and looking for the deer, meditating on the deer, and he fell off a cliff and died. Anyway, so he took his next birth as a deer, because he was thinking like that. So whether it was previous times or it's modern times, when modern times things are easier, but modern times still how few people take up the path of Krishna consciousness. Any time, whether it was the Satya Yuga or the Kali Yuga, very few people in that lifetime achieve the highest perfection. And Krishna says that in Bhagavad Gita. He said, "Out of many thousands among men, hardly one endeavors for perfection, and of those who endeavor for perfection, hardly one knows me in truth." So it doesn't matter, even in Satya Yuga, many people performed austerities, but not everyone in that lifetime achieved the highest perfection and went back to Godhead. And the method for self-realization given for each age was, it's given according to the qualifications of the people at that time, the general public at that time. So in Satya Yuga, people perform these heavy austerities of the Ashtanga Yoga system. Their lifespan was long. It was beginning of Satya Yuga. It was like 100,000 years. But the system for self-realization took maybe 60,000 years. And sometimes, many times, someone performed that Ashtanga Yoga system and became distracted by the getting mystic powers. Rather than going straight forward and becoming fully Krishna conscious in the level of bhakti yoga, sometimes they became said, "Oh, look at these wonderful mystic abilities. Let me just enjoy them." You know, so in the same in going forward to Kali Yuga, we may take up the path of Krishna consciousness and think, "Oh, this is most wonderful. Let me just perfect my life." But at some point, we say, "Actually, I'm feeling pretty good now. I think I know how to manage the material, energy." Well, we have 2 minutes left. We have to record Joseph. So even in the path of the relatively easy path that we are following, there are distractions because our mind is easily distracted in this age. So just answering your original question, what did they do? I don't know exactly in the details because Srila Prabhupada didn't give that so much, but the high level of austerity then was quite doable for the people who were qualified in these previous times. Okay. Does that answer the question? Okay. So end here for today. Tomorrow we'll continue with the Vaishnava etiquette course. Okay. And Sunday, of course, is Lord Nrsingadev's appearance day, so we'll be speaking something about Lord Nrsingadev in the morning. Okay. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.